So welcome to today. I'm Christine.
I'm Liz.
And I'm Sarah.
And we are Double Defense. We're an all-female New York Rangers podcast, bringing you fun conversation about our New York Rangers, the NHL and hockey, and so much more. Thank you for joining us. Because my hat does line up. It's cute.
I love this. Where'd you get your cup? That's amazing.
It was Walmart. It's like $2. I'll get us all cups.
Yeah, that's really cool. I've never seen one here. That's awesome.
I broke out like a little bit of a juice and I have my peppermint vodka.
You love those flavored vodkas.
I'd love to have a mixology thing and like really kind of do better drinks because I'm like, this looks really good, but what do I make with it? And I just get at a loss.
Just don't say that word.
So
we can help you. I don't know if you want it, but we can help you.
Not that mixology is painful.
Well, painful. I mean, I've had some of Ben's drinks that he makes. So.
Oh, yeah. Oh my God. Wait till you guys see. I'll have to show you this video. Do you know what a cement mixer is?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So Ben convinced our new hockey friends from Boston to do, because they didn't know what a cement mixer was. So he convinced them to do it. But here's the most disgusting part of it. So Ben played rugby for a long time, and there's all these rugby traditions. And one of the traditions is when you
suicide drink.
Okay, so it's a cement mixer is a shot of Bailey's and a shot of lime juice. And you combine them together in your mouth and you mix it around so it curdles. And then you drink it. But they took it to this new level where you not only
you spit it in the other one's mouth.
You spit it back into your cup and then you pass the cup to the left.
Ew.
It's horrible. But they didn't do that part. I mean, they did everything. They spit it back in and then they drank it. And I took a video of it. And me and the other and the
I had a
wife,
Boshi drink, so that's the same thing, right?
Did you do a Boshi shot?
Yes, I've done a Boshi shot.
Okay, you know what a Boshi shot is? Okay, so it's when, I made this up. It's when, a puppuccino, whipped cream for a dog, and they put it in a little cup. So I make Boshi, I have these little plastic shot glasses. I put some whipped cream in it. I let him lick all the whipped cream. Then I pour a shot of vodka into the cup, and then I drink the shot of vodka. Christine did it too.
That's cute. I like that. It's inclusive, it's very inclusive.
So gross.
I brought 2 eggnogs. I have my Steelers cup, but I turned the logo around so you can't see it, but the colors are there. And then I have my last Penguins
eggnog. I didn't get outside today.
So. Sarah's like, I'm doing a shot made of the tears of New York Rangers fans. That is what her shot is made from.
They're double shots of Sailor Jerry's rum, which I love with eggnog. I mean, I can talk rum and eggnog all day. I'm a connoisseur. I actually went to get more eggnog because the 2 liters or 3 liter ones I have in the fridge are for the weekend. So
you're brave if it's like 1,000 degrees below 0 Celsius there too.
Oh, it's disgusting. Oh, Liz and I were on a call this morning and Mark's like, it's 3 degrees. I'm like, fuck you.
I'm not even going to tell you what it is in Southern California.
I know. It's fine.
I know. I was on a conference call and the guys in Florida, they're like, we have to cover our stuff because it's going to be like 20 degrees. I'm like, that's what you get for being freaking 80 last week, because we were freezing and now it's kind of going back up to normal temperatures.
We were freezing. We were. Sarah's like,
I'll
be the judge of that.
It is supposed to be Christmas Eve. It is supposed to be +3. So I just said to my husband, I'm like, it's going to feel like board shorts and sandals on the patio.
Yes.
You should do that. We'll match it because it's going to be like 80 degrees here, which is, I think, the same thing in Canadian terms,
Yeah, that's basically how that goes.
Sure. Yeah.
I call it even.
Fine.
Sarah, did you hear the shout out that we got from Mind Your Pucking Business?
I didn't hear it, but I saw you guys text about it and that was very exciting. I like that.
It was basically them saying that he's very jealous of all the games that we've been going to. And he also said he gave us some very high props for this show being very good. So he's a fan, and he said he'd like to have us on beginning of next year.
I happened upon their show because they record early, so it's 7:00 here. So yeah, I just kind of happened upon it. I was listening. He had his Christmas hat on, and so I started kind of chatting, and since they were talking about the game, I think I kind of I kind of put my 2 cents in there as well. And they kind of jumped at it. And then they took a moment because they did have a guest before the guest to acknowledge it. Yeah. And he was like, not only they're pretty good, but they're more lucrative than us. So he's like, I just stay in my house. And he basically said he's got season tickets and never goes. And so I was like, what? That was very nice. And yeah, that extra thing of like, we're going to have him back on. I'm like, oh, absolutely.
Awesome.
So
I don't know if once the news has really come out that Sarah's a Pittsburgh fan. I noticed it after I posted. So I put up the post about Sarah. We lost 2 followers right away. I don't know if it was a coincidence. And people just like delete their accounts. But after we posted that you were a Penguins fan, I'm like, oh, we're at 190. I'm like, no, we're at 288 now. Like, what happened?
Oh, sorry.
No,
I got some nice messages.
That's funny. I'll do the Christmas pet poll, and we'll get a few more. Hopefully,
Yes, there we go. We'll get them back.
It's all going to balance.
I got some cute pictures with the animals at the pet shelter with my ranger gear, so I'll use one of the 2 of those, and I'll put it out on a bunch of polls. You guys send me pictures of your pets, and then I think what I'll do is you'll see I put it out there. I'm like, show us your pets, and then I think we can only really post 10, so we can pick our favorites and post those for the new year. We don't necessarily have to do it by next year, but maybe the first weekend in the new year would be really fun to kind of post those. So I'll put that. I just have to put it out on all the boards. I keep trying to post things on the boards on Facebook, like on the different pages, just to get people to, come over and like our page. So we have about 35 likes on our page, our followers now on that page. I'm like, come on, because then I get those reports. So it's like, you're reaching out to 4,000, people are looking at it, but
this is a tough time of the year too. I think when people are back and focused, especially if we can go on another win streak. So anyways, Speaking of that, I wanted to kick off today because with a little bit of an intro again, because I think we do have some new followers who are joining us. I think maybe there was some confusion when people are like, I thought this was a Rangers podcast, and here this girl is
what kind of it?
Penguins. But it totally is. And I think this might be just a great time as we come toward the end of the year to do a little reintroduction of who Double Defense is, why we're doing this podcast, and why we're super excited to bring different points of view all to the same table. So Christine, maybe you want to kick it off and give a little recap on who you are and why you're here.
Who am I? Why am I here? Hey, I'm here because I reached out and said, hey, does anybody want to hang out? And are you a Ranger fan? And I met Liz. And so we finally ended up getting together in the end of last season, kind of watching some hockey, realized we both like to talk about it for hours and hours and hours while we're doing shots on the scores during the playoffs. So, and who am I? My name's Christine, and have been a lifelong Ranger fan. I'm from New York. I'm from Long Island, transplanted out in LA for a very long time. That doesn't mean I'm not a New York girl at heart. I always root for my boys in blue. And I work my day job as a risk compliance officer. And now that we've started doing this podcast, it's been great because it's bringing my attention to these games and other games as well to just a whole different level. It's become even more of a pastime. It's always been one of my bigger hobbies. So it's been even more focused, and we've learned so much since we started. So it just gets more exciting. It's fun school. Yeah. So
I want to add that Christine is great on the message board. She's never one to not share her opinion. And I think one of the reasons that we'd started talking about doing this podcast in the first place was sort of having a safe space for female fans to talk about hockey, not necessarily feel mansplained all the time. Although I think there's a fair amount of mansplaining and female splaining. There can
be some mansplaining, but we know how to
a lot of boards. Yeah, Christine is great, and never one to shy away from a debate about the Rangers in any way.
Yeah, and on that note too, I'm not usually wrong, but if I am wrong, I will admit it. But no, it's fun. It's fun. The debates are very common, and it's just more like trying to kind of refocus people. That we have I see very over dramatic fans. Do you want to call them passionate? Some of them, yes. Most of them, no. I just think they're miserable people that, just want a reason to complain or create like a like, what do you call it? A kind of a benchmark, just to create a placeholder for if something happens so that they can be like, see, I told you so, like those kind of people.
But that's, I have to say, and as a transplanted New Yorker myself, I think a lot of New Yorkers carry that element in them of we need to constantly be in a state of fear. Otherwise, we don't feel alive. It's just built into our DNA, which is why I think this team, you get the team that you deserve. And I think that the Rangers are it. I'll quickly give my introduction. I am Liz. I am a New Yorker based in Southern California. I've been a Ranger fan growing up my whole life. I used to watch games with my dad, my family. And when I moved to California, I found a great New York Rangers community of a lot of other transplanted New Yorkers, including Christine, and have just had a blast diving into this podcast, getting to know the team in more detail than I think I ever have before, as well as what's going on in the rest of the NHL and be able to help try to bring this community to a little bit of a wider audience. So it's been an absolute blast. And Sarah, who's our resident Canadian, because I don't think it's fair if we have a hockey podcast without a Canadian on board. Sarah, why don't you give your introduction?
Oh man, those ones are hard to follow, and thank you. I am the Canadian of the group. I am a Torontonian living in Calgary, Alberta. I'm a Pittsburgh Penguins fan because the Maple Leafs can't ever win a cup. It's a long story. And I'm just honestly passionate about sports and passionate about hockey. And when I met Liz and we quickly discovered our love for hockey, truly it brought the passion of the game back for me. I've lost it certainly since I've lived out west, which has been almost 8 years. And it's just been nice to find this community, to meet Christine. I think we all have a great relationship and a community here together. And we text every day, which I love. And we're passionate about the sport. We can talk stats. We can talk skill level. We can talk teams. We can talk schedule. One of my favorite things is our broadcasting, like what broadcaster is covering the game of the evening and how we're all accessing it, whether it's in English, Spanish, French, or some other language, or streaming
on a plane.
On a plane. Yeah. It's been a very unexpected time with you guys, but probably like one of the highlights of my last 10 years for sure. And I'm happy to be here. So thank you for having me.
Oh, that's so sweet.
Since Liz and I are in the same area, we have mini cutout Sarah, and she has traveled along with us. So we are creating little mini me's to travel around with us as we all like to adventure. That's been, I think, one of our challenges, since we kind of started. We've been having some fun. We have been traveling. I think we started off our first few broadcasts traveling, or right before, right after, where Liz, I think you were overseas. I was in New York, and I think Liz, you were going back and forth to something, across Canada, and then we've kind of done some trips together, at least with Liz and I, trying to corral Sarah one of these days. So we definitely have included her in other ways as well, so that in one way, shape, or form, we're all together when we do things. So it's been a fun run so far.
And speaking of being together, I think we're sort of in a unique position on this podcast to really be able to dive into the game from last night, which was the New York Rangers against the Pittsburgh Penguins. It was a loss for the Rangers. They lost 3-2. I think it was a very well played game on both sides, and I think this is a really interesting opportunity to sort of dive in and hear Rangers perspectives, Penguins perspectives, in a very respectful and supportive way, ladies. I want to point that out. I think that, what we can try to bring into the hockey community is that kind of support and respect for the other team with just enough shit talking to get us by.
I know my yays were a little smaller for the Penguins than they were for the Rangers. Yeah. And
we
they might have come
nice.
with a couple of gurs.
And Sarah's been very supportive. Oh, that was such a great game. Yeah,
it truly was. Honestly, I know we've talked about it already today, but it was a very diplomatic game, I think, between the two teams. It is obviously on everyone's mind where the season could end up against each other. Liz, you and I already said we want a more dirty game the next time we play each other.
I was hoping for dirty. I was hoping for dirty too. Martini, dirty, and it was not that. I'm willing to bet maybe not the next game, but easily those games in March in New York. Tensions are going to be high. Stakes are going to be there. We're going to have a really good idea what playoffs look like. I'm going to wager a bet that it's going to get a little more physical, which I hope.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think last night, I think their positioning was just too strong, and they were both really focusing. I think it was contrary to some people that I've seen their opinion. My opinion was, I think last night was really pivotal. Had we won, we would have moved up, into a good third spot. Had the Pens beat Carolina like they should have the other day, we would have been sitting in second had we won. But neither of those things happened. And so we're back down in the wild card spot. I mean, there's only a few points that separates all of us right now. So we're going into this holiday break, and it's anybody's game. honestly, it's usually always that way. So it starts to get to be this run for your money once the All-Star game hits. And then the pressure's on, and it's always really tight, especially against the Penguins. We always seem to play them first. We always seem to be vying for position.
Well, the schedule is super weird this year because this was the first time that these teams had played. And then the next 3 games are all within the span of a week. In March. Right. So first of all, it's bizarre scheduling by the NHL, which we can get into at a later date, but it's going to get very, very intense. And this game, I have to say, like, even though we lost, it felt for the most part well played. There were a couple of moments where, and I was trying to watch while flying on a tiny little screen, but kudos to United for having like pretty good Wi-Fi while flying back. That was absolutely amazing. But I think the Rangers put up a good fight. I think Pittsburgh just played better. I think Jarry was absolutely amazing. He had some incredible saves. And if hitting the post counted, I think we would have blown that game out of the water. But unfortunately, the Rangers this year, year, the post has not been our friend. That was very apparent last night.
We're still leaders in that, I believe, along with Trocheck.
Yeah, absolutely. Poor Trocheck.
I know. Also his grandmother fed everybody the night before. I haven't seen anybody blame his grandmother yet, but
I absolutely have. I heard people talking about how it was the carbs from the pasta. Sarah, I don't know if you had seen this, but
I saw the post. Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Sorry, there was a post, but there's also, they talked about it on end during that game last night.
It absolutely was talked about so much. So for anybody who does not know who is listening, Trocheck, who's a native of Pittsburgh, his grandmother had the entire New York Rangers team to her house and cooked dinner for everyone. They had chicken parm and pasta. And I did see people on the boards blaming his grandmother.
Poor thing. I think, my opinion of the game, it was a good game. I think Jarry really kind of saved them because we had shots. We had good shots. He made some very good saves and we hit the post a lot. I think the last second non-call was not a good one, but it is what it is.
It is what it is.
The one thing that I do like about the Rangers is that not every call is going to happen. And so I know that you had sent everything. Are they always against us? They're not always going to get called. You can't expect these things to get called. You just have to play and play and play. You got the glare from Gallant and then they moved on. So it is what it is. They have another game tomorrow. They move on. Again, everything's so tight. It's okay. Aside from that, yeah, I agree with you. I think it's a 1-goal game, bottom line.
Yeah, easily could have been tied up. Kreider had a couple of great. Kreider with 2 goals, but he had a couple of great chances to go for a third. Sarah, from a Pittsburgh perspective, and you've been following them this season, what are you seeing? What are the takeaways for you from that game?
Jarry for sure. Him and Chesty though, like they were both phenomenal goalies. I think last night, shots on goal. Every time I looked, they were either tied or maybe New York was slightly ahead, but they did bring it back. It seemed pretty evenly matched. Sid, every time they closed in on his mustache, I was just wanting to vomit. I'm sorry.
I'm so not into that mustache.
Me either.
We should have a whole episode devoted to that because there's a couple of players that it's just not working.
How about Carpenter?
For Kreider. I don't think it's working for Kreider.
I don't know. There's a whole bunch of thoughts that were going through my head at that point last night, but Rusk, I think, really stepped it up. I saw on Instagram for the Penguins that he got like a special award in the locker room. It was like a helmet. Certainly outstanding. I think everyone played very well. I don't have any concerns. I am starting to see a tiny little bit. Malkin and Crosby are looking a little aged, dated, older. I haven't really caught that before this season. I mean, it's coming. They've been playing together for so long, but I'm now starting to think about like what's next gen Penguins look like. That's not that far away. But between the 2 teams, great game. But I am hoping for some action next time.
Yeah. Why do you think?
Well, we plan on being there too. So, and guess what? There is not going to be a freaking horn blasting in our ear.
Oh, yes. When we were texting about that horn, I'm reading it to my husband and I'm like, this must be a Canadian thing.
Pittsburgh's not in Canada. It's not a Pittsburgh thing.
There's a lot of Canadians on it. It's Lemieux. It's his team. That. There's tons of Canadians there. But
I think do an air horn at all the Canadian games?
For OHL, WHL, like 18-ish league, like it's a staple. It's a staple in hockey Saturday night.
Like parents who bring cowbells to children's hockey. You just want to punch them all.
That's like a Calgary thing, regardless if you're at like the CFL game, the hockey game, or whatever else, the basketball game. They all have cowbells. All of them. They're annoying.
Is it better or worse than the entire crowd shouting shame at the player taking the penalty, like in Vegas?
You know, I was talking to my son about that, and he's like, we don't like it. I'm like, I still think it's funny. I mean, I you know, maybe if you're hearing it every time, I don't know what would it be like, but like, I'll never forget your face at the end of the row. And
what's up?
And I just thought it was so funny. So I keep trying to figure out places I can do that at.
Oh my God. It kind of sounds traumatic though. Like when you were first explaining to me, I'm like, is this for real?
I mean, the scene from Game of Thrones that it's based on isn't not traumatic. It's like the most dramatic scene of the whole show.
They just added like one of the cutest scenes at that game. Not only was everyone yelling shame, but it was that cute little 7-year-old in front of Liz who on his own, when the Knights got a penalty, started trying to do that chant of shame to them. And he was 7 and he was just loud and it was cute. I think I was trying to chime in too, but it was funny. But yeah, like I'd take the shame over the horn any day because at least there was a reason. Like it was so distracting and it was so loud. And I think I was texting Sarah, like, oh, I was already say Carpenter's kind of cute. And then he smiled and he had no teeth. And I was like, oh, no.
There's a few of those, especially when you see the ones that have paid to have their teeth done and they're still like mid-career. Oh, that's a ballsy move.
It was just funny. I think it's funny that you say that, you know, with Malkin and Crosby kind of looking aged, you know, what I'll say is the Rangers kind of picked up on the going with a younger route and the younger team kind of right after Vegas. Because again, that Vegas ended up with that when they were in their first year and they were, you know, having to pick players. They just kind of went with this young team and they made it in their first year. And I think a lot of people started kind of riding on that younger wave. And the Rangers were one of the teams to do that like pretty quickly. And we saw a lot of fallout. We, you know, some people still aren't over those changes yet because of how they occurred. But you're right. At the same time, what I see in the Penguins, along with some of the other teams like the Capitals and stuff, they really do rely on Crosby and Malkin. And where I don't see this so much in the Rangers, like, okay, we're going to take an example of the game before that, where we had 7 different Rangers score 7 goals in the game. Where when you look at the Capitals or the Penguins, you're really only seeing 1 or 2 of these top players getting the puck and getting the scores. I don't look at all their stats to see the ice time compared to other players and stuff. So I think it's maybe a little, you know, swayed for them to get the ice time and the scores and everything, because all that's going to add up to better stats for those players. Yeah. At what point are they going to, you know, would the Penguins start to kind of change it up and bring those younger players in, give them a chance to kind of, you know, get in there too, to make a stronger team.
Well, look at the Rangers.
They have to do that right now.
They turn things around as soon as Gallant changed up the lines and let the kids start playing a little bit more. It really changed the momentum of the game. I think, you know, as these kids keep playing and they get more experience, like I think you can see it a lot with Miller. I don't think he's the strongest defenseman, but I think he's come a really long way since last year, and he's picking things up every single game. And I think with this game specifically against Pittsburgh, I think there were a lot of good learning experiences for a young team. And I think that they showed up, they performed pretty well. I think you're right that the next meeting is going to have a very different vibe to it.
Well, we just have to make sure we're there because it's going to be good.
It'll be so good.
I think that has to happen. I think that's what we're tentatively planning on. So
watch out, New York.
I would digress a little bit into what I'm seeing today is they're talking about Blais, you know, Sammy Blais and how he performed. He was pulled yesterday from the third period after that fight. That kind of cost us a goal. He's not scoring. He doesn't have a lot of assists. I think they're saying like no goals and only 9 assists in 44 games. Now, granted, he was out from November of last year for the rest of the season and just came back. So they're kind of tagging on the 2-year stats. I think he's looking for one of the first to be kind of traded too. So what do you think?
Yeah, I think so. I think so too. I haven't seen him do much of anything to write home about, and I don't have much other analysis other than that. I don't think he's been performing, certainly not to any kind of level that we'd need him to stay on the team. The best thing about Blais is that he was really easy to rhyme in my New York Rangers Twas the Night Before Christmas. So that's the only reason that I would hate to see him go. Other than that, they can happen.
I think, he seemed good at the beginning. I was actually at that game that when he got taken out, I was there. So it seemed like a big loss. And, I think they're saying he's slower, but, he blew out his knee. So, is he not fully recovered yet? He's only on a 1-year contract. So I think he'd be easy to trade.
But think about it from this perspective. Blais rhymes with play. and Frey. Shostarkin, you cannot rhyme anything with. So.
Shefty.
Really, my only argument for keeping him.
Oh, well, we could trade for something worse. So
yeah,
keep your fingers crossed then.
There's one rhyme with VC, but I'm not going to go there. Who's been playing very well, by the way. I don't want him to be traded.
Yes.
I will make that rhyme. VC's been playing absolutely, and I think Trocheck has as well. And I was really happy to see Hedel back in the lineup after what was potentially a concussion that I guess was not really a concussion if they had him playing. By the way, speaking of injuries, how's Letang doing? So he's back. How did that happen?
Yeah, I don't know. Christine, we were talking about this. I've been watching it a little bit. I haven't watched it so much this week. He was playing. I mean, he looks good. And as we talked about last week, I think it's just more of like, if this is what he wants and these are his wishes, and if truly, God forbid, something unfortunate happened while he was playing, I think that's what he wants. That's my guess. That's why he's still playing. He certainly must be aware of the risk. The team would have to be aware of the risk. I can't even imagine the insurance on this guy to have him continue to play. But, I've followed this team for a long time, and he's come back from a very serious blood clot. He came back from the first stroke. Like, this guy is Iron Man, maybe? I'm not sure. But clearly his passion for the game is trumping everything else. And his family must be aware of the happiness that the game makes him. And he's playing. I think it's crazy, but he's playing.
Yeah, I'm not really watching him play, but I'd be kind of curious again to kind of follow it. Because, I mean, are people trying to check in? I don't think it's going to cause anything. But are there any other kind of, things that are going on with him? I mean, obviously he's clear to play because they wouldn't take any chances with anybody to kind of play. But I think what we were talking about last time, Sarah, was that, I don't know what kind of ice time he's getting. So maybe he's doing shorter shifts. Maybe he's not getting as much ice. So maybe that's something we can kind of keep an eye on and kind of report back on just to see how he's doing. Because, if he's getting, 8 to 12 minutes, game, or around there, then that's kind of average. Let's see if he gives more or less time to kind of get in there. And let's see how he's scoring and playing too after,
Definitely.
He's just kind of came back. It hasn't been that long.
He was the one in that video on Instagram last night that was giving Rusk the helmet, the special helmet for the game for having whatever it was that he did. He got an assist for sure. But I don't know.
Their version of the Broadway hat. That's so cute.
Yeah. I don't know. I am a little concerned, but obviously it's what he wants, and we'll keep an eye on his ice time. I do kind of wonder though, next season, maybe they pivot him to something else. I would also wager a guess that is there some sort of unspoken rule where the other team just can't touch him?
No, they sure banged
That horn can put anybody in a seizure, man. They gotta watch that crap. That's what I'd be worried about.
I'm thinking back to times where this is going way back to the late 90s. You had I'm thinking Shane Corson on the Maple Leafs where he was on and off for concussion issues. He comes back to a game and it's a big game and he's playing well. And I'm thinking Daniel Alfredsson comes and just takes him out. And Darcy Tucker just comes and smokes Alfredsson. The moment I think you try and make a move on Letang in that way, I think the whole team's coming for you. And I just don't think that's something that you want. I don't even know why you'd risk it, but
kind of like that video I posted on our story,
Yes. Oh my God, that was so
good. The point of view when you're protecting your goalie and just both penalty boxes are filled with the whole team. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, it could be. So even more to keep an eye on the fights and everything. I didn't see it, but I heard there was a really good fight tonight at the end of the third period at the Devils game that might cause a fine. So I have to kind of watch that later. Report back on that one.
I like a good fight.
Especially when someone's judging whether to be fined or suspended.
Speaking of, sorry, I'm going to pivot for a second. I caught today that Tampa Bay defenseman Mikhail Sergey, I can't even read my writing, a Russian player for sure, from Tampa Bay, was fined $5,000 for slashing Maple Leaf forward Michael Bunting. Apparently $5,000 is the maximum amount you can be fined under the collective bargaining agreement, which I thought was really interesting.
What Tom Wilson got when he should have been fined, suspended actually. That was not, because they have a committee that votes on that. And by the way, the committee's made up of former hockey thugs.
Yeah, of course.
Like George Parra. So that makes all the sense in the world.
NHLPA, right? Aren't they all part of it?
So that hit Buchnevich got, and then he was fined $5,000 for that. That was what cost our team $250,000 because they wrote a statement saying that they did not agree with it. And so because they wrote the statement, they were fined $250,000.
Holy crow.
Yeah. When the Tom Wilson thing happened, it was a matter of, I think, 3 days between that incident, the fine, the rebuttal. We got a couple people fired, and then we matched up with them again that like 2 days later. And if you haven't seen it, go watch it. It's a fun to show. I think I was showing it when we were in Vegas to people. The minute that puck dropped, it was an all-out brawl. And by the way, watch it carefully. We did not move first. The Caps moved first. And it was just an all-out brawl. That's, I have to look and see that the amount of penalty minutes racked up in that game was more than the minutes played. It was insane. And they got so many penalties. It was great. That's always a really fun one to kind of look back and watch on. But yes, I think this fight at the end of the game that happened tonight, they compared the action against the player to that one that just happened. So, and it was worse. So this will be a curious thing. So that's something to kind of replay later on. So I just didn't have time to look at it before we were meeting on this one. So other people are going to know all that by the time we air it, but it'll be interesting to see.
The NHL can't really be that against the fighting and sort of like the violence, because this is what gets people talking. It's what gets people into the game. There was one year, maybe it was a couple of years ago, I swore up and down that there must have been an incentive for the players to get into fights. Like, even though you're going to get a penalty, drop the gloves, because that's what people want to see. And I mean, there's no denying it. It's exactly what we're here. Even at the beginning of this conversation, we were talking about how we wish that the Penguins game was a little bit dirtier. So it's a very fine line that this sport walks all the time.
Yeah, no, but the fights are one thing, but it's these other, intentional, deliberate acts that really can cause the player, to be injured. I've seen some pretty dirty plays, amount of time to where, I'm surprised they don't turn around and have them arrested. It goes well beyond the rules, so.
Todd Bertuzzi, I still remember that. Like that's like yesterday. It's bananas how that went and how all of that played out. I've never seen anything like it. I still don't even know if I've seen anything like it since, but $5,000 is a fine, a maximum amount allowed. That's nothing. And perhaps, Liz, that's why, it's enough to be like, sure, we're doing something about it. And it all goes into a fund anyways. It goes into the players,
the retirement fund. It goes back to them.
It's the nothing. Emergency assistance fund. Like, you're right. It's obviously, it's enough to cover their butts, but
the thing is, kind of going to that point, it's like, why are they so hesitant to throw out suspensions? And I think that's what there should be more of. That's really going to hurt them. But you want the team to pay for the action, make sure they don't do it again. It's like, it's going back to that youth hockey stuff. They do, in youth hockey, all the way up to the teenagers and stuff. If they have a major, they're suspended from the very next game. So there's just rules. They're more hesitant to give out a suspension than to evaluate something for a fine. So that I find is interesting.
I wonder if some more consistent refereeing would help, because just looking at how some of the games have played out, especially this year, there's been so many no calls or calls on non-existent plays. The refs seem all over the place, and I don't think it's unique to one team or one ref. I think that there are definitely refs who are missing calls left and right.
Like last night.
Yeah,
in a big way, in a really big way. Yeah, and I'm not going to sit here and say, hey, that that cost the game or anything like that. There's a million reasons why the Rangers should have won, but when those calls aren't made, players know that they can get away with it if they're just crafty enough, and that starts to become very problematic if it starts to snowball into something bigger.
Yeah, I agree.
Yep.
Hey guys, this is Christine with Double Defense. When you get a chance, follow us on Instagram at double_defense_NYR. Also on Facebook. Look for us to do drink pairings for each of the games on our stories, and not too far away, look for us to be live as we broadcast from all 3 of our locations on a weekly basis. So we look forward to seeing and hearing from you. Well, I'll switch a little bit because we're talking about fights and stuff. Monday night, I was surprised. I know my boys were talking about it in Vegas, but I was hungover and drunk or both and didn't really know what they were saying. And then Monday, they're like, we're still on for tonight. Sure. What are we doing? I'm like, I'll go. It was an amazing event. It was the rivalry series, USA women's hockey versus Canada women's hockey team. And I did not know this. I mean, they were in the States. They're actually doing a 7-game series around the United States and Canada. The final 2 games are going to be played in Canada to be determined. This started in 2018. So every year they've kind of had a series. I think 7 is a lot for their series, which is good. It brought them to LA. Again, this is game 5 with USA winning the first 3 and Canada winning the last game. The game was amazing. They played so well. I was so impressed. And they were fast. The shots they were taking, I mean, there were a lot of smooth backhand shots, and they handled the ice really well. And there was a couple of fights, in the third period. So they really got into it. They're checking. So we were kind of talking about what the rules were, for women's hockey. Everything was the same. So I don't really know if they're kind of played by I think hockey rules too. So because these are the teams, the USA and the Canadian teams. Really, really a great game. It went into overtime, and then Canada scored maybe 2 minutes into overtime with a great goal. Great saves by the goalies. Just again, they were fast. Their checks were on point, and a lot of skill. I mean, these girls have moves. So it was so great that we really kind of wanted to be on our seats and not miss anything. So it was really fun. I wanted to talk to more people, but I went over in the beginning before the game started. We were outside trying to get the tickets, and I kind of went up to this group of people. And I kind of just wanted to kind of see what got them into hockey and who inspires them. And the first person I walk up to, I'm like, so, you guys are here for the game. Like, what do you guys like about this? And they're like, well, my sister's on the Canadian team. So I was like, well, okay. I was going to ask you who inspires you. I guess you already have the answer to that. So that was fun. And they were all there from Canada. She had a big, huge entourage of her family there. There was a cute young boy, kind of reminding me of the boy at the Vegas Knights game that was there with his dad. And he actually met them while they were at a practice. So that's kind of how they knew about the game. And they were practicing at Toyota Center, which is where the Kings practice. And this young boy is on the Junior Kings in-house team. His name was Lucas. He's 7. His mouth was completely red from eating Twizzlers. and he was just screaming and yelling and everything. And it was fun. And then I was talking to these other 2 women who were, they were kind of talking, kind of had the same question I did, like, how did we not know about this? It was a pretty full event in the lower level. It was a Monday night, but they were invited that night, and they're really big they were like, we just want to come and support any kind of women's sports, any kind of sports we see that involve women. They're really big into the LA women's soccer team. So there were a lot of people with, the LA team, the soccer team there, and they're supporting the women hockey team too. So, and they were like, had we known, we could have filled up the whole section ourselves with our friends. So that was a kind of a question that really kind of came up. It's like, how did we know? Even my son kind of found out just haphazardly by looking at the games, that were happening this week while he's in town. It's too bad. I know it was broadcast on I think TBS on Monday night too, but I'm like, how did we not know about this? So we're here to let people know that women's hockey is great. Go watch it. Go find a college game and watch it. And definitely, I'm going to keep an eye on the rivalry series. And when they're back in the States, where they're playing, because it was very impressive. I did not know that they've been doing it for a few years now, and they seem to be kind of expanding their game. So I'd be kind of curious to see how next year goes. And some prominent women on these teams, some sisters, Amanda Kessel, and some other people that were there. 2 of them, the women that dropped the puck, are actually work for the Kings organization. Manon Riom is a kind of a staple figure in the Kings organization. So some of these players are local too. So very proud to say that the Kings actually, are hiring women and putting them in the front along with the players and on the benches. And we're seeing more of that, with some of these organizations. So
that's awesome. Is it anybody who'd be like playing for the Olympics? Like for anyone?
Yes, they were all on the team. Yeah,
that's awesome.
That's a team. So
that's
it's Team
so cool.
USA and Team Canada. And a lot of them come out of the different colleges and stuff. So we were kind of looking up some of them on the spot. Yeah, I had to say I'm not as familiar with them yet, but quite stunned as to just how fun it was. It honestly was the first time I've seen a full full women's game in play. And these girls they're sisters and I think wives of some of the players. So they've kind of all grown up together. So they definitely know their thing and they play well. I'd love to see them take on some of the men. I used to love watching my sons when he played youth hockey. They would every once in a while play the girls team. And it was really funny because the boys were allowed to check, the girls weren't. But when they played the girls, they weren't allowed to check the girls. Some of them kind of forgot and they would get penalties and stuff. But the girls, since they weren't busy, and the boys like to check, they were really getting into being able to do that. They've been playing for 6-7 years, and now they're in a stage where they can check, and then they're told that they can't. So while they're focusing on checking the players, the girls were always focusing on the skill. So the girls usually owned the boys' team, watching them play them. So that was always really fun to watch. I don't know if these exhibition type things happen, but I'd love to see them play.
That's cool.
I honestly thought they played a lot better than the Blackhawks. I'm like, what the heck?
In Canada, I mean, it kind of goes through spurts, but there is a lot of coverage on women's hockey, especially around this time of the year. It must be pre-World Juniors where they showcase the series that you're talking about. Just this week, Hockey Canada, with all the trials and tribulations happening over there, announced that Cassie Campbell will be on their new board. She was one member. There was a gentleman announced as well. They still have a whole bunch of seats to fill. But I think with that whole resurgence of Hockey Canada coming into this new light and this new time and this need for positive hockey content, not just NHL, just across the board for the sport, I think we're going to see more women's hockey be prominent the way you're describing. And that's a very exciting thing.
It would be great. I mean, the thing was great. There were so many young girls there that just wore these miracle shirts and supported. They knew who these girls were. So looking around and seeing how many kids were there and how excited they were getting into it was super cute. Definitely want to make sure that if they're in town again, that I'm not going to miss it when they are in town. So it was a good find. Definitely one to kind of push out and something to follow in the future. So again, the final two, as I saw their schedule, the final two games were to be determined in Canada to kind of close out their tour. So definitely as we kind of wind down our season, we'll kind of maybe reflect back and see if we can get news on that and where they're going to be, because it's definitely something to kind of report out and shout out to and kind of keep people focused on that, because it was worth the price of the ticket.
I love that. That's so cool.
That's awesome.
Before we wrap up tonight, I wanted to ask, what is on your Christmas list this year, or Hanukkah list? And it is in my case. What is on your list this year, NHL wise, Rangers wise? What can Santa bring you that would make you the happiest?
You go first.
I will go first. Because I've been thinking a lot about this. I would be very happy if the Hanukkah Fairy brought me an NHL season where hitting the post counted as a goal. That is my wish for Hanukkah this year.
Did you see my chant on the on Facebook? Post, you suck. Like, why are we not yelling that?
I think we'd be in first place. I think we'd be ahead of the Bruins if
and Trocheck would be MVP of the year. As his mom feeds the whole NHL. Let's take them all out. Come on.
I would also very much like an invite to that event next year, to Trocheck's grandmother's house when she's hosting the entire team. Can you imagine how fun that would be?
I volunteer to wash the dishes.
Me too. Absolutely. She's cooking 100%.
I need to be adopted into a family like that. I already asked 3 Santas for a boyfriend, so
actually,
they kind of laughed at me. So
that's a great point. I want that to be my Christmas wish. I want Christine to have a boyfriend,
because we're all going to go on this cruise next year.
Yeah.
The Bachelorette of Hockey at Sea with double. Yeah.
Oh no. Yeah, like especially one that likes hockey.
Maybe CBC.
You just read my mind. I was just
deal breaker for me is Capitals and the Crosby fans. Those are deal breakers. Other than that, I'm good.
I was gonna say I know a Canadian broadcaster that wants to commission a show like this. Oh my god, that's funny.
We laugh now, and this could be the biggest hit show. We might know a couple of people who work in television, just maybe.
Hey, at least Liz, wouldn't be fluff, and it'd be something exciting. Just try not to roll my eyes during that meeting this morning. Oh my god. Anyway, sorry, I digress. That's a very exciting wish, Christine.
it's more like desperation, especially if we are going to go on a cruise. I'm like, come on.
You have to manifest it. You put it out into the universe. You've been very good at manifesting that. Except remember when you started manifesting more shots on goal, but you forgot to specify that the shots had to go in the net.
It's true. So
be very specific when you're manifesting.
When it's not working, I got to change it up a little bit. So we are working on that. So right now, the next week, you look at my son's in town. He's coming over for breakfast. That alone is a miracle. And then we're going to close out the year. So I would like, one of my wish is that we can get together and do this Penguins trip. So, so I'm really hoping that will occur and that we all got to get together and have fun doing that. For the rest of this year, 22 has been amazing. I think it still continues to get better. So we're looking at a great 2023 between, this week and me getting ready for next week's party. Then, and it's gonna be fun. A hockey boyfriend would be great. Like that's definitely on the wish list. So, but the reactions from the Santas were, well, I can arrange that to just a downright laugh.
Were you sitting on their laps? Were you sitting on their laps when you asked this?
I tried to stay close. Go ahead, Santa. I got to be on the nice list.
And Sarah, what's on your Christmas list this year?
Besides finding Christine a boyfriend for the end of the regular season, like I meant to think this over earlier when we were talking about it, and then for some reason it escaped me while I was wrapping presents. Truly, I hope both our teams do well, and I think that is the case. I don't understand why Carolina, Boston, and New Jersey are like killing it, especially Carolina, because they're kind of. I want to see. I don't know what else I want to see. I don't know. I think I got to think about the rest of that answer. I'm sorry, but
Sidney Crosby shave his mustache.
Oh, please. Oh, like by New Year's, like ASAP. I think there's one game left for them. Oh my God.
Well, let's wish that Carpenter gets teeth first. So Santa,
two front teeth, right? Isn't there a song about that?
Two front teeth. There's a song in there somewhere.
On that note, happy holidays, happy Hanukkah, Merry Christmas, whatever you celebrate. Thank you for everything. Thank you for coming along with us in this amazing adventure that we've been having. We will be on the air again next week. Please tune in.
We may not be sober next week, so probably not. Definitely tune in.
Less sober than I am now, I hope. Oh my God.
All right, thanks, ladies.
Merry Christmas, guys.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Happy Hanukkah.
And happy Hanukkah.
Happy Hanukkah.